Welcome back to the shop, guys. I just pulled the S14 in today, and yeah, we're gonna get some more work done on this thing. In the last video, I was sort of trying to address a hard start issue. I thought it was related to fueling. Now I'm not so sure, although it still might be. Anyways, I'm just gonna sort of forget about that for the time being. The problem is kind of frustrating me, so the whole point of these project cars is to enjoy them, and I'm gonna take a break from something that's a little bit annoying to do something that is a little more exciting and enjoyable to me. So I'm gonna be installing some new parts on this thing. Let me just go ahead and show you what I'm gonna be putting on today. So here's the parts lineup for today. Right away, you can see we've got some rear brake rotors, and I painted the center sections just to sort of keep them from rusting. You know, keep them looking nice a little bit longer. The star of the show, we got some Z32 Rear calipers from Part Shop Max. And man, these things look awesome. Apparently they're not even reman rotors. According to Part Shop Max website, they even come with brake pads, and they're fully assembled, and they come with all like the little hardware and stuff as well for a really good price, honestly. And I really like the finish as well. I'm not sure how well it's gonna match my car. It's something I can always change later on though, if it really bothers me that much. Well, at this point, it'll match my ISR FPR, so there's that. And also, continuing with the theme of rear brake upgrades, we got this hidden hydro e-brake setup from GKTech. It's an interesting little idea here. Basically, this goes inside the storage, like center console thing. It stays hidden. You attach the inline cylinder here, and that attaches to the factory e-brake cable. So you're converting your factory handbrake or parking brake into a hydraulic e-brake that can also still double as a parking brake as well. There's a few reasons why I'm going with this. For one, I want my car to be kind of like a discreet drift car. So I didn't want a vertical handbrake inside the car, but I still wanted good lockup. And secondly, the rear Z-brakes don't have the same sort of parking brake situation as the factory ones. They actually have a drum brake, and I don't feel like buying all the components and the knuckles and everything to make that work. So I'm just going to convert it to hydraulic. This way I have something for drifting, and I also have a usable factory handbrake as well, for a little bit cheaper than getting all the components to make the drum brakes work. And honestly, I kind of hate drum brakes. So it's a win-win-win all around. And yeah, that's sort of my thought process behind this idea. Save a little money, have a working handbrake that's good for drift, and keep the factory stuff working. So yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and do some cool mods on this thing. So the front brakes I'm gonna be leaving alone for now. They're actually not in bad shape. They work fine. My rear brakes are a completely different story. They are beat up. There's some old Project New pads in there, and I drifted on this setup for a long time, and there's no pad life left. The calipers are rusted out, and yeah, one of the parking brake levers is actually seized, I think, on this one. So the rear brakes are super beat up. This is a much needed mod. And if I decide I want to start drifting again soon, this sort of like completes everything, mechanically speaking, that I need to get back on track and start ripping again. So no more chatting about it. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the lift, get it in the air, start pulling those old brakes out. There's a few parts that I'm missing. I need to get some fittings to put on the factory line so I can kind of put that in line. I need to get some conversion brake lines for these Z-brakes. Although some people online say it's not necessary. We'll find out when we get in there. It's something I probably want to replace anyways, but yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing in the air and start wrenching. So I pulled the wheel off, and here's what we're looking at for the rear brake setup. You can see this caliper is super rusted out. Very low pad life. And eventually I'll upgrade these arms. I do have fresh upper arms from GKTech, and those are holding up really well. But these ISR arms have been in here for probably ages. Had these for a long time. They're still holding up great though. They haven't seized up or anything. They're not loose, they're not making any noise. But as far as the brakes are concerned, we are just gonna go ahead and take this spacer off, take the caliper off, and pull the rotor out. I went ahead and got aftermarket brake lines as well. It turns out you do actually need those. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and knock this out real quick. I'm gonna get it all apart, and we'll see what modifications we need to do to get this brake to fit. From what I've heard, it's pretty much an easy bolt-on. This is a pretty commonplace upgrade for the S chassis, so it should go right on. I know this dust shield is probably gonna get in the way, but it's no big deal. We'll find a way around it. So yeah, I'm gonna get this all apart and get back to you guys. So those calipers and everything, just seized up old hardware. Really rough. Glad I'm finally getting a chance to replace it. So right off the bat, I can already tell this dust shield is not gonna work out. And yep, it's hitting right away. So I'm gonna start by cutting this outer lip off and just leaving this flat back section. I could remove the dust shield entirely. I don't wanna take the time to take the hub off and remove the dust shield just to find out that it offset the hub and now the brakes aren't working properly. So I think it's best to leave the dust shield in and cut out what I need to cut out. So yeah, I'm gonna get the cutoff wheel. I'm gonna cut around this edge. We may end up having to hammer this back a little bit more to make it fit, but we'll get it in there one way or another. All right, let's see if it clears. Perfect. No rubbing, no scraping. All right, moving on to the caliper. So I am gonna be able to use the original hardware, but the threads were kind of dirty and it was kind of seized up. So I'm gonna run those threads through a die, and then yeah, we'll go ahead and throw on the Z32 brake. Then we'll take this rubber line out and the original brake, and we'll get the braided line in, and we should be good to go. Nice, looking good. Dang, I hope you guys can see this from this angle. Yeah, this looks sick. Very nice. Much needed upgrade. I definitely need to get the fronts done now. Thankfully, these aren't too expensive, so I can get matching front calipers for around 300 bucks, I think. And then pick up the rotors, spray paint the centerpieces like I did here, and that's a pretty clean budget brake setup. And honestly, these brakes are all you really need for the amount of power I'm making and stuff. Very cool. Love to see that. Here's a look at the brake line that I ended up getting. It's just an ISR brake line. They're all pretty much look like they're from the same manufacturer. So yeah, decent quality brake line. Allows me to hook up the Z brakes to the S14. pretty easy stuff. So I'm just gonna disconnect the line up here, thread this in, thread it in both sides, and then yeah, we're gonna bleed these brakes out and see how they work. So the brakes are finished up. I got both sides done. Don't mind the dirty wheels. This whole car needs to be cleaned up. I'm waiting on my last body parts, and I'm gonna test fit everything. I'm gonna clean the car out, clean the car up, and hopefully get it painted soon. But yeah, the brakes turned out sick. They're looking good. I got both sides finished. I bled them out, took it for a test drive. It does in fact stop, but you know, the pedal still feels pretty soft. I think I'm gonna need to do the front calipers and then the Z32 master cylinder as well to sort of finish things up. So the next thing we're gonna tackle is the GKTech hidden hydro setup. So I've got my inline cylinder here. I've got the bracket, got my lines. I'm gonna have to break out the flaring tools and fittings and everything to make this work. I'll be walking through all that with you guys. So once this is said and done, I should have a working parking brake and something that I can use as a hydro for drifting as well. Essentially what's gonna happen is the middle of the center console, I'm gonna have to cut out the bottom piece of this. The cylinder and bracket's gonna sit in here. We're gonna cut the cable on the factory handbrake and hook it all up. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, I'll show you guys the process. I have this all apart and I'm putting it back together. I may go ahead and reinstall my radio and all that stuff. Although I don't have speakers in this car. That's something else I need to sort of address. So yeah, I'm gonna get this thing back on the lift and get started on this GKTech hidden hydro setup. So I started off by cutting out the bottom of this little center console storage compartment. It's a shame I had to cut it up, but honestly, this thing's already in pretty bad shape, so it's no big deal. Gonna move on to removing the handbrake. It'll take a little bit of work, but that should slide off. Then I'm gonna unbolt it. Go ahead and pull this cable out. Probably gonna have to detach it from underneath. Can't remember if it's already unbolted or not down there, but all right, so yeah, get the handbrake out, unbolt the assembly, pull it out, cut some of this carpet out of the way, and start marking my holes for where the bracket's gonna go. It's gonna go somewhere around here, so, yep. So I got the handbrake out, and then I went ahead and drilled out this rivet, retaining the this sleeve. And then I cut the end of the cable, basically cut this off. Now it's time to reinstall the handbrake and figure out the mounting position for this bracket and go ahead and drill the holes and get this mounted up. And then I think we can move on to installing the cylinder and tackling the lines and stuff. Little update of what's going on in here. So on the GKTech installation video, they did it on an S13, and it was pretty easy finding the location to bolt this thing up. The S14 is a little bit different. We have sound deadening, and it sort of pitches downwards right here, and that doesn't continue all the way over to the side. So I had to take the time to get the sound deadening out and hit this section with a hammer so I can get this over exactly where it kind of needs to be. So it was a little more labor than I anticipated. I also had to take a little more material out of the front of this to make room for this swing arm. So yeah, this has turned out to be a bit of labor, but it's getting there. So the next thing I got to do is mark my holes, drill through, and then bolt this bracket on. And then I got to figure out how I'm going to pass through my lines here. I might make a plate so it stays nice and sealed. I don't get road noise or anything like that inside the cabin. So yeah, we're getting there. I'm gonna go ahead and drill these holes out, get this thing mounted. So yeah, this is sort of where everything is gonna land. I'm gonna have to rotate these fittings a bit to make this work, but that's just about it right there. I'm kind of hoping that there might also be just enough room in here to fit my climate control, because I want to get a doubled-in radio, and I already have my gauges here where my climate control originally is. I have another gauge that goes in the middle, and right now I have it relocated to underneath my radio, but like I said, I want to get it doubled-in. So if I can, and it looks like there might be just enough room, if I can fit my climate control in here, I don't know, we'll see. It might be more challenging than the time it's worth. I may end up relocating it inside the glove box once I install that. But yeah, making good progress, moving right along. I'm gonna go ahead and mark these holes, drill this out, and get this thing mounted up. Moving underneath the car, you can see I got the bracket all mounted up. It's kind of hard to see. It was kind of a pain to get to, being that it's above the drive shaft and stuff, but this is how I decided to run my lines as well. So some little P-clamps, some riv nuts, some M6 bolts. I cut my brake line and went ahead and put the lines in line with the rear brake line. So it's a pretty common practice. Obviously, dual rear calipers is a little bit better, but in my experience, inline hydros work fine too. So I've never really had any problems with them in the past. I already had the components laying around. It kind of just made sense for me. So yep, these little P-clamps should keep these lines up out of the way off the drive shaft. I still need to make some sort of grommet or something to kind of seal this up so we don't get road noise or anything like that. But yeah, so let me show you guys how it turned out up top. I just wanted to show you real quick how I did my lines and stuff. All right, let's see how this turned out. So this is the whole assembly. These lines are still a little loose, and you can see it's kind of leaking, but I still need to make some sort of plate or something and probably put some rubber grommets in it as like a pass-through before I can bleed everything out. But yeah, everything turned out great. You can see everything functions properly. I do need to tighten these lines, but like I said, I need to do the pass-through first. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It ended up not really rubbing. So yeah, very solid. All in all, I'm very satisfied with this product. I'm sure it'll work just great once I get everything bled. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the entire rear brake conversion. All in all, it was fairly inexpensive. So some of the components I already had laying around, like the master cylinder and those steel braided lines and stuff, but I'm really happy with the GKTech products as usual. The Part Shop Max calipers were very budget friendly and seemed to be really high quality. So all in all, the rear brakes are pretty much mechanically sorted on this car. I can pretty much call it finished at this point. Like I said, I still have to bleed it out and test it and everything. The car isn't licensed, so I can't really go rip it on the street or anything like that. But yeah, I'd say that this is a win. I can mark that off the list of things I got going on. And you can see the list is pretty massive. So, and I'm adding more stuff to it all the time. But yeah, I've got some other cool stuff on the way for the car. I'm actually getting started on getting the body parts together. So I've got a wing on the way. I've got some rear spats on the way. So the next coming videos are going to be some really cool stuff. I'm actually going to be finally focusing on the aesthetics on the outside of the car and really getting the body kit sorted out, cleaning up some fitment issues on some of the panels, and getting everything ready for paint. So this is a huge step, and I'm gonna be really happy to see this thing painted finally. So I hope you guys stay tuned for that. Definitely subscribe so you can keep up with the content. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.